Hey rockers and happy Ellendorf. Yeah, memories of the old Ellendorf Music Festival from Central Illinois. Hey, thanks for being here, man. You guys probably thought I dropped off the freaking map, but I just been going through some stuff, and you know how life is, man. It can throw some weird curveballs at you. So just trying to do my best, my friends. But I've got a cool tale tonight about radio and what happened one night when I was on the radio. So let's talk back in about 1976, 77. I remember hanging out in my bedroom, of course at my parents' apartment, and well, the family apartment. And I remember sitting in my room with my black lights on, my strobe light on, and I would put on music and sit in my room on, evening nights, weekends, and I would pretend I was a radio DJ. Yep, I distinctly remember my records back then would all have little notes written on the back covers, and I would like have my little spiel, and I would pretend like, hey, you're listening to blah, blah, blah radio, and that was Kiss with Hotter Than Hell. And I did that a lot, and so I always wanted to be a radio DJ. Flash forward to the year about 1998, 99, I think 98, late 98 perhaps. Living in Peoria, Illinois, we moved from a really cool home on Birchwood Avenue in Peoria to a street in Rolling Acres, the subdivision of Rolling Acres to Wrenwood Drive. And the people that rented us the house were a couple named Lori and Wayne. We never much dealt with Wayne. We dealt with Lori, who kind of ran the ship and was like very functional as far as operating these like 25 homes that they owned and rented out to people. And they were very cool people as far as landlords. So shout out to Lori and Wayne, and you'll find out who Wayne is soon enough. So we're living there. The landlord finds out that I all of a sudden became unemployed. I was working as an auto detailer for a while. That ended. I was working for a couple places, and when I was working for Jim's Auto Detailing, shout out to Jim. I don't think he's around anymore, but Jimmy Williams, what a great dude, man. I worked there doing that, and all of a sudden I was unemployed, and my landlord said, look, no problem. I own 25 houses. Here's a set of keys for you, buddy. This is for every house I own, and I need every one of them painted inside. That'll give you work for a while, and half of them need new roofs, so we'll have you as helping out with doing roofing. So that was awesome. I was set up with work, making good money, and my landlord was totally cool. Well, when I was working with the landlord, doing this painting and getting set up for these jobs, which was such a blessing at the time for me, because I could sit around and listen to music all day and smoke my stuff and have fun. Well, she was totally cool, and she said, it's cool that you're into rock and roll because we got to know each other a lot. And she knew this guy's a real rocker. I was in Bloody Mess in the Veins at the time, and I was doing gigs with bands like Nazareth, Enough's Enough, Jackal, whatever, just different rock and roll bands. And she said, well, my husband Wayne, of course, he's the general manager for the radio station. And I said, huh? And she says, yeah, he's the general manager for Rock 106 WWCT, which was called the home of rock and roll. And in the mid-70s, I think 78, I'm guessing, maybe 79, I could be off. Rolling Stone magazine named Rock 106 Radio WWCT as one of the number one station in the country. So guess what? She tells me that Wayne is also Wayne R. Miller. Her husband, Wayne R. Miller, was a legendary radio DJ that I just happened to listen to as a kid on the radio. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And she says, nope, I'm not kidding you. And I'm going to make sure you end up on the radio. I'm like, wow. Well, right around that same time, I befriended a guy named Don Egan. I don't know whatever happened to Donnie. He just kind of stopped talking to me, but I love the guy still. Great guy. He was hosting a show on Rock 106 called the 10 O'Clock News. He booked my band Bloody and the Veins to come on the radio and be there live for an interview, played our music, and right after that, when our album came out, My Black Little Heart hit the market. It was being played on about 17 stations around the country, and it was getting regular rotation on Rock 106, meaning it was on like every other hour, even during morning and afternoons. So the song My Black Little Heart is quite popular in Central Illinois. If you know the song and you're from Central Illinois, leave a comment below. And hey guys, real quick, could you please subscribe to the channel? Maybe give it a little like if you like it at the end. Leave a comment and share. That would be super cool. Trying to build the channel. Back to the story. So Don Egan's doing the 10 o'clock news, which is on every night at 10 o'clock, and he would have local bands on. The Veins and I were on there. It was a really awesome thing for us because it broke us through from me being this notorious punk rocker that was in the paper all the time in the 80s and 90s for doing a lot of crazy, wild stuff. Everyone knew who I was because when you read the paper, you find out that kind of thing, right? Well, she introduces me to Wayne R. Miller. Wayne R. Miller says, wait a minute, because he knew my real legal name because he had rented a house to me, but he had no idea that I was Bloody F Mess. And when I told him, you know what he said? He goes, I don't like Bloody Mess, but I like you. And I said, you don't like the performer Bloody F Mess and the things you've read about, but you like me because you know me personally. He goes, yes, I hate Bloody, but I love you. And, well, what happened was, right around that same time is when Donnie Egan had us on the radio, so I became really good friends with Donnie for a long time. We used to have Thanksgiving at each other's houses and stuff. I love the man. Donnie, where are you, man? Anyway, Wayne R. Miller tells me, go ahead and talk to Donnie, and if he wants to let you be an intern for him, you can for a while. And so me and Donnie, thought it was great. This guy's going to put away all the CDs every night because there'd be stacks of CDs because back then it wasn't all automated with computers and stuff. It was people playing CDs and pressing buttons, and the phone lines were always ringing at Rock 106. There was 6 phone lines to my remembrance, and it was always flashing. There was always somebody calling to request a song, and the people could hear that station within like a 2.5-hour radius, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think it was a 50,000 watt station, and I think it's still around today. You could look it up, WWCT Peoria. Anyway, I become the intern. It's a great job. I'm doing stuff like putting away CDs, and then I ended up booking 1 month's worth of guests for Donnie, maybe 2 months, where every single night, at 10 o'clock, he had a guest in the studio, either performing live, doing an interview, and playing CD cuts, or whatnot. One time, I even got Zakk Wylde to come to the station. Yep, that story is right here on this channel. How I got Zakk Wylde in a car, took him from another place, and brought him to the station, and Donnie was like, whoa, you are a great intern, Bloody Mess. Well, what happened was, after interning for a month or two, one night they said, let's put Derek on the air because I had chosen a name for myself for radio. And that name was Derek Moody. And that's the name I've been going by, besides Bloody, since 1999. I've been going by Bloody since 1982. So there's a lot of people that call me either Derek or Bloody. I don't care. No one really calls me by my legal name except my mother, who died in 2009. Bless her soul. Anyway, my friends, one night they said, let's put Derek Moody on the air. That's the name I chose, and I'll tell you how I got that name later. Actually, I think I've already told that story. It's on this channel. At the very beginning, if you go to the video section, you'll find it. So they say, hey, dude, we're going to put you on the air for 1 hour and see how you do. Well, I got on the air, and I knocked it out of the ballpark, according to Don Egan. I was like, no, man, I sucked. I was horrible. I'm so sorry. I'll do better next time. Well, here's what happened. Within about an hour, half an hour of me being on the air for that 1 hour, an email came over from Wayne R. Miller saying, I think Derek is ready for his own radio shift. What do you think? How do you think I felt at that point? Completely crazed out. I was like, oh my Lord. My mom's like, you've always wanted to be a DJ and you've made it happen. I'm like, wow. So here's where the story really begins, my friends. There was a guy doing overnights from midnight to 6 a.m. every night of the week for the most part, which I think is against radio laws, rules, and regulations. But he was on every night of the week, midnight to 6 a.m. And he had his own little following because, like I say, it was a big station. And to be up between midnight and 6 a.m. is a particular type of person, the night owl, like me. Well, this particular guy that was on the air, I won't say his name, his father used to be like a captain or some kind of higher up in the police department in central Illinois, I think Peoria. Not positive about those details, but I know he was connected to that kind of thing. We got along fine. He knew me as Bloody. He'd seen my band. I'd partied with him. I used to call and request songs. Well, what happened was he had a falling out with the radio station, and there was stuff going on behind the scenes I didn't know about. This guy was automatically, at that point pretty much, within days of that email, axed. Yep. And I'm sure he's going to see this video. Hey, man. Thanks for all the hate mail and all the nasty things you've said to me over the years, bro. You're a nice guy. Not. Anyway, it became very surreal But next thing you know, I'm on the radio station 7 days a week from midnight to 6, cutting my teeth at one of the biggest stations in the freaking central Illinois. I'm not boasting here. I'm telling you a story that's going to blow your mind. So this guy was really angry when he was fired. He came in one night to get his stuff and he was completely livid. He was venomous towards me. Whenever I'd go to bars, I'd see this guy. He would call me names and call me just the most horrible stuff. And, you know, I was kind of a physical guy back then. I always thought the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So I never really backed down from many situations like that. But I never took it any further because I knew the guy was wrong. I knew he was just upset because his ego was bruised. And, of course, he lost a great gig. I didn't think it was cool. But, hey, man, someone had to take the job, and that was me. So Derek Moody on the air, and then all of a sudden I'm on the air after about a month, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, maybe 2 weeks. And it was really awesome. I was learning the ropes. I was having fun. I was playing rock and roll on the radio. I was getting tons of requests. And all of a sudden one night I went out to have a cigarette because, you know, back then I was a big smoker. And I went outside the front doors at about 3 in the morning. I'm looking up at the sky. I'm like, God, I love being on the radio. I'm getting paid to be a DJ. And it was so great, man. So many perks. And I met so many cool people that I'm still friends with today. Shout out to all my friends. All of a sudden, I smoke a cigarette, right? I'm looking out. I decide to go ahead and go back in the big steel doors that are glass with steel around them. And there's a big like knob that you turn to the left and it locked it. And you could kind of shake the doors, but they were locked and pretty solid. Well, I made sure to check, and you know, because I didn't want anybody coming in because the studio and the whole building's dark except for the studio. You have this little lit room at the end of a hallway, and it was cool. It was like in the movies, man. Like you'd see Wolfman Jack and American Graffiti. It was like that kind of cool. And I go back into the booth and I shut the door. And you have this cozy feeling when you're in radio doing the overnights because people are calling in from trucks, people are partying, people are at home alone. They're, you know, you're their only companion. And back then, radio was still king, man. The internet had not taken over. Podcasts were not everywhere, and you did not have radio personalities that really tried to do what they could to really do something with as a radio personality. And I created the Church of Rock radio show during this time, which is another story, which will be a good story. But I go back in the studio and I hear all of a sudden, a few minutes later, this loud crashing noise that literally almost made me pee myself. And I was like, what in the heck, man? Somebody either just drove in through the front door or somebody just broke in. And I'm freaking out, dude. And I'm looking out through the big glass window because it looked into like another studio on the other side, but the hallway was in the middle going that way towards the front doors, right? The whole building is dark except for the booth. My heart is pounding. I know for a fact somebody has broken in. And this is not good, right? And it wasn't. Well, I start to look down out that glass and I see lights coming down the hallway like flashlights and I am freaking out. My heart's going really fast right now thinking about this stuff, man. It was a real bummer. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, in my pocket was a baggie with some weed in it. And but back then it was very harsh, the laws there. I could have gotten a lot of trouble and probably even gotten behind bars because of it. I was like, oh no, what's going on? So I wasn't thinking about that right then. But I opened the studio door because I'm like, okay, I've got to confront this head on. I can't just sit here as a sitting duck. There's no way out of here. So I freaking opened the door and I'm like, hello? And more lights are coming down the hallway. And I'm like really freaking out. No one's saying anything. Somebody's trying to freak me out. And they did. Well, next thing you know, guess what I see? Lurking from the shadows coming through that flashlight. It looked like a fog in the distance in that. It was such a spooky, surreal sight. I saw a German Shepherd dog. And it wasn't just any German Shepherd dog, friends. It was a canine unit. And guess who was holding on to it? The Peoria police. And there was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 of these guys. And I can't recall, but it was more than one. And I was freaking out thinking, uh-oh, I'm being set up. Something's going on. And I've got weed in my pocket. And these are, why would you bring a canine unit in if you didn't need it, right? There's no reason at all. They keep those dogs in the cars, whatever. It was like in the middle of the summer. It was nighttime. It was cool. It was probably hot. Okay, maybe they brought the dogs in for another reason. But I don't think so, guys. Here's what happened. Finally, I'm like, hello? And this officer says, yeah, how you doing? And I'm like, this guy was, his tone of voice was telling me that he was there to mess with me. This kind of stuff happens with police. Telling you, man, it's happened to me a dozen times. I've got so many stories about police. I've got good ones too, though, about police, but I've got some bad ones that are kind of terrifying. I all of a sudden realized, okay, this has to do with that other DJ that was fired, because I had found out in the interim that he'd been connected with the police because of his father being an ex-police chief or whatever he was. And he, according to what I found out, I'm not naming names here, was dealing a particular substance out of that studio. It was one of the reasons he was let go, from what I know. And not only that, there was other reasons, but I think he was doing stuff connected with the police department. I'm not positive. I'm not making that a statement, and I don't want to be hit off. Well, maybe that'd do me a god darn favor. I'm kidding, man. Dark humor. But yeah, man, they were totally and utterly, because you use your intuition when your adrenaline's really high. You can feel what's happening, like senses. These guys were there to mess with me. You know what he says to me? He says, "We're here because your front door was wide open. We thought somebody maybe broke in. We thought we'd check in on you." And he's kind of smirking, and you could tell that they were lying. And they weren't trying to hide it, man. And I had a canine, and I had weed in my pocket. I'm like, oh, man. You know what I did? I said, no, man. I was just out there smoking 5 or 10 minutes ago. That door was locked, dude. But guess what? I've got to be on the air in like seconds, which I had minutes. I think I threw on a long song. Back then, you'd throw on songs like a live Leonard Skinner track or Zeppelin from Song Remains the Same. You got like 24 minutes, or Inagata Vita, literally by Iron Butterfly. It's the overnight. We would do that and go get buzzed, and go stand outside and smoke out, me and the DJs. It was fun. But this particular night, it wasn't fun. And those cops were there to mess with me and probably try to get me busted. But what I did was quickly, this all happened in like a minute. I wasn't stupid. If that canine would have reacted to that smell, which I don't know why he didn't at that point, I don't know how that works, but I immediately said, I got to get back in the studio. Have a good night, guys, because I knew they had no way they could come in that studio unless they were going to bust me or give me some kind of really grandiose lie about why the heck they're walking in the studio, because that was off limits. When the door was shut and a DJ was on the air, there was no way people walked in there unless it was management. You just didn't do that to a DJ. Well, they didn't come in there, and they did leave. But my heart was pounding. I didn't know if I should call somebody for help, because I didn't trust these guys. I knew that they were doing illegal stuff. That's what I'd been hearing on the street, and I'm a dude from the streets. And I just know there was some bad stuff going on. They were really mad that I wasn't on anymore. They were calling me on the overnight phones, saying stuff every night. Like before this, they were saying stuff like, "Where's Kelly? How come he's off the air? Who's this?" And they would give me snide remarks and tell me they were police. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to be on the bad side of these guys. They have a lot of power, man, And so the next day, basically, I went through the rest of the night freaking out. I mean, from 3 to 6, I was thinking, they're going to come back. They're going to come back and get me. I've got this on me. It's so illegal, which is now totally legal for recreational and medical in the state of Illinois, by the way. It's a medicine. It's a plant. Anyway, even if you don't agree, that's okay. We can agree not to disagree, because I'm that kind of dude. So these guys leave. I didn't bother going back out until about 5 a.m. I just didn't want to go out there. But I went back out, and the doors are totally unlocked. They shut them, but they ended up breaking something when they did that to the door, I believe. I can't remember. The next morning, however, I got up early, and I was supposed to sleep, because you get off at 6 in the morning, and then you're all adrenalined up for an hour or two, and smoke out and go to bed. And that, rock star hours, right? Well, I got up at like 9 in the morning and went to the office and said, hey, Wayne R. Miller, my boss. I'm like, dude, this happened last night. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. And he told me, you know what? Because I was going to call the police and file a report. He goes, no, we're not going to do that, man. I believe you. That's crazy. That's scary. Thanks for putting up with it. But Kelly, the other DJ that was on the air was going to have to deal with the fact that he was fired and he made his own bed and has to lie in it, right? And that's the way it was, man. But there was a lot of horrible stuff I had to deal with after that. Prank calls, the ex-DJ calling me up drunk and high out of his gourd on substances that are like white in color, if you know what I mean. And back then they were very popular in central Illinois. You go to the bars, you couldn't escape it. I was never into that, to be honest. It was never my bag. I'm almost at 20 minutes on this video. I'm not going to bore you any longer. But I'll tell you, nothing else ever happened after that, except whenever I'd run into that dude, he was super uncool. And here's the clincher. One night, about a month after him being so mean to me and snide and verbally abusive, he saw me in a bar and he apologized, man. He came up to me. He must have been either really high or semi-sober, one of the two. And he says to me, dude, I've been a total dick to you. I'm sorry. You didn't have it coming. You haven't done anything wrong to me. You've always been a cool guy. I was just pissed off about losing my job. I go, look, why do you think I never fought back with you or gave you any grief back, dude? I knew what, I put myself in his shoes. And if I would have been him, I would have been hurt too, minus the treating him like a piece of crap though. So there's nothing to be, there's no harm done here. We're talking about the year 1999 when this stuff happened. A lot of people are probably deceased that were listening, that were cops, and that guy lives in another state. I know that for a fact because I had to block him on social media because he was harassing me. Even after he apologized that one time, he just started coming out like shooting cannons at me verbally. I'm like, and he threatened me too, man, and I could have turned him in, but I'm not a narc. And where I come from, you call the police instead of handling stuff yourself, you get in a certain sort of trouble on the streets. So you just don't do that, man. So I handled it by going block, which is actually a really great feature. A lot of people say, oh, I don't block anybody. Bull crap, man. You have to keep toxic people out of your life, and if that's the only way to do it, do it. Do me a favor, man. If you liked my story, please subscribe below. I have more radio stories. I've got band stories about my own 40-year music career that are pretty crazy. I've got tons of rock, metal, and punk stories coming. As a matter of fact, when I end this one, I'm going to film another video. So for the next 2 days, I'll be putting up videos for guaranteed. I'm going to try to get the energy mentally and emotionally, spiritually and physically to do one a week, every day for a week. But it's been real hard lately to pull the energy out, guys. Just like I say, life throws you curveballs, and sometimes it's not good. I'm doing my best, and any well wishes are appreciated. And all your comments are always appreciated too, man. I love the family that's created here in the name of rock and roll. Keep rocking, stay real. Thanks for supporting Bloody F Mess Official, and I appreciate everyone that supported me over the last 40 years in any way, shape, or form. Adios, amigos. And one last word. My new album, Dark Daze Unfazed, is my 10th album and my 40th anniversary album. And if you're inclined, I've got a few copies left on vinyl and a few on CD. So hit me up. I'll put my email below in the description area. And by the way, the description area is always a fun place to check because I sometimes put different facts that I don't tell in the stories because I'll be done and go, oh, I forgot to throw this in. And then I'll put it in the description area. Thanks again, man. I appreciate each and every one of you from the bottom of my black little heart. Cheers, man.